cried. Most people were silent.
3, 2, 1.
Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
Everything.
Be a cowboy, please.
My name is Ted Bundy.
Submitted for your approval. What have we got here?
Oregon 911.
I would like to order a pizza.
You called 911 to order a pizza?
Okay, I will destroy humans.
Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
Everything.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So about 5 minutes after the police got here, see, the girl Amanda told the police, I ain't just the only one. It's some more girls up in that house.
He had a gun and he was poking it in my side, told me to drive. And so I drove.
Shook hands. Trump on South Korean soil. Kim Jong-un in the north.
It's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaverate.
I think these boys were involved in it. They practiced it. They were considered dabblers in it.
Telling their kids that you can't go outside or a vampire will get you, just to make their kids stay and do what they want to do. God is basically the same way.
The Second Amendment, like all other rights, is not absolute.
Let's watch a sitcom or something.
No! Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
Everything.
It was very difficult for her to lose sight of the fact that she wasn't there bonding with Dylan the way I was. And I think that was a huge problem for her.
If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a
Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
Everything.
I think I would have to agree with that, Julia. So the poll question, Luigi Mangione as a hero. Options are he is forcing change. He is part of the evil. He is my sexy hero. He needed an excuse to kill. Julia's saying combine he is part of the evil and he needed an excuse to kill. I'd agree with that. Either way, welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos, and we are broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. This is episode 6 of Anything and Everything. And when we say anything and everything, we mean it. So don't be bashful. Don't get offended. Sleuth Intuition channel is where you come to learn to agree to disagree. Leave your troll shoes at the door, in the mudroom, or I think it's Japanese culture, outside the door. Welcome in Miranda Lee, Mustang, CJK, Julia Burns, Lynn, She Warrior, Outside of the Grid, Lala, CJK, Mikey Morales, Jill Moser. What is up, everybody? What's going on, Loxy? That guy that took pictures of himself eating a diaper and Richard Allen would get along good. I agree with you. That is one sick SOB. All right, you guys ready to mix it up? So today we're going to go ahead and close the book on the Hana Kobayashi. We'll start with that and get that out of the way. And we'll talk a little bit about the Martin Muñez case out of Cleveland. I think that happened last year. We might talk a little bit about Syria. If you guys have been watching world news, you may know that Trudeau has recently, or not Trudeau, but the president of Syria escaped to Russia and has now been taken over by what used to be the Taliban. Or excuse me, Al-Qaeda, better yet. So we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. And then we're going to get into the Jersey drones. You know, we haven't gotten a clear answer of what the hell that is. I would have been okay with they're just drones. No big deal. But people that live there and are dealing with this shit, they're filming it every day. They're saying some of them are bigger than a car. Not quite sure. Let's see. We're going to be talking about Luigi Mangione. The CEO assassin. We'll probably spend a big chunk of time there. And we'll talk a little bit about Canada's dictator, Trudeau. And also university football teams and the controversial planting of the flag. So I'm telling you guys, we're all over the place. Mustang says, hey, outside of the grid, Loxy sipping on that red wine. Anna, good to see you. Luigi might be nuts, whatever he is. His supposed message falls flat because I doubt his family has suffered from the insurance cartels. They probably benefited from them. And I'll give you my opinion on that when we get there, you know. And I have a good example. So I think he was just looking for a reason to kill. Very similar to murderers in prison. You know, they find themselves a chomo or whatever. And they say, oh, well, I don't like child molesters, so that's why I killed him. And then everybody goes, oh, yeah, good job. Good job, murderer, for murdering again. But he didn't care. You think those people give a shit about kids? Inmates who are in there for murder? Come on now. They're just looking for reasons to kill that we won't overreact about. Just like Mangione here. Outside of the grid says, pretty boy that will never smell the beautiful smell of a woman again. Oh. Best thing in the world. Laura C., welcome in. He's the unibrow assassin. Got that right. Shout out to the good unibrowers. Don't be stigmatized. Hiawatha says 2 car-sized drones filmed just south of Indy last night on the news. Yeah, what the hell is this? You think it's anything to be worried about? I was talking about, oh yeah, Mark Redwine, exactly. Had my mind on some red wine. That sounds good right now. But it has to be organic. Yep, Mark Redwine. He's got those Steve Buscemi eyes. Brian Koberger eyes. Eyes of a psychopath. Julie says, I bet Richard Allen would get along with Dylan Redwine's sick father murderer. Viewer discretion advised. Do not look this up on images if you don't want to see his father's weird kink involving human feces. Yeah, he is definitely a sick SOB. I think that might even be the reason that Mark Redwine, the father of Dylan Redwine, killed his son, Dylan. I think he found some photographs or some videos or actually walked in on his father doing some really sick shit. Yeah, that's definitely a heartbreaking story. Mark Redwine is sitting in a place he was headed his entire life. But now the world no longer has Dylan, who by everything I could see was a great kid. Good to see you, Melissa, CJK. I knew you were bald. I knew you wore a rug. Just kidding. I bet you didn't know it was a rug. Outside the grid, who is the fucker with Hitler stash? Justin Trudeau. Hitler's bastard son. I wouldn't be surprised. Lala got upset by that earlier. She's like, you're going to put a Hitler mustache on my prime minister while your president is Trump? Calm down. Take it easy. We're all friends here. Julius has agreed. Him and his brother found pics of his father in a diaper. Mark eating his own. Yeah, I mean, they're on. I have those photographs. They're disgusting. And I think he's wearing like a woman's bra too. So not only is he eating feces out of a diaper, he's also wearing woman's undergarments. Dylan didn't even want to go with Mark. There was a custody battle, and this piece of shit judge forced Dylan to go with Mark. And he killed him. Nobody talks about that judge. Yeah, but Mark ain't shit either. He ain't shit. Yeah, it was pretty good. So the 2 women, 1 cup is the president of Canada. 2 women, 1 cup. Oh no, that's not a chocolate stash. I drew that on. It's pretty good, huh? Pretty accurate. All right, we're at about the 15-minute mark, so I think whoever's going to be joining us is in the house already. Let's get going. So if you guys haven't heard, they've already contacted Hannah. She's reached out and spoken with her family. She's fine. I doubt we're going to get an explanation about any of this. But I did find a quick little report about it. So this case is definitely closed. She's made contact with her family. No explanation to what happened to her
Kobayashi has
father.
been found safe after disappearing in Mexico. A month after the Hawaiian woman's family reported her missing in Los Angeles after a planned trip to New York went awry, her family confirms they have made contact with her. Hannah's sister Sydney and her mom Brandy Yee say in a statement to NBC News, "We are incredibly relieved and grateful that Hannah has been found safe. This past month has been an unimaginable ordeal for our family, and we kindly ask for privacy as we take the time to heal and process everything we have been through." The family adds, "We want to express our heartfelt thanks to everyone who supported us during this difficult time. Your kindness and concern have meant the world to us." The update from her family comes just 1 week after the Los Angeles police.
So what happens with the GoFundMe? What happens with any investigation into her father, Ryan? What happens to the immigration scam? Like, what now? I guess it's none of our business, right? She's not a missing person anymore. Or are you guys pissed?
Police department declared the 31-year-old a voluntary missing person. Hannah first lost contact with her family early last month after she missed a connecting flight from Los Angeles to New York. Los Angeles authorities later held a press conference stating Hannah had left the country and crossed the Mexican border.
She traveled through the MTA. She then made it to Union Station. At Union Station, she used her passport and cash to purchase a ticket to get to the border, and she then crossed the border. She appeared fine. She was with nobody else. I have nothing additional, but I have observed the video, yes.
We've basically done everything.
I guess we should probably be a little more focused in on the facts. You think, Brad? Here's a comment from Brad. I found out tonight that Trudeau eats feces from a diaper with his brother and sister. That's why it's important to put things in context and use full sentences. You guys got that? Chat rules 101. Context is everything.
Thing we can do at this point. She's left the nation, left the country, and in another nation now. So, as I mentioned in the earlier comments, that if she comes back into the U.S., law enforcement will be notified of that, and try and do whatever we can if there's a need to at that time.
Hi, Laura.
Days later, the Kobayashi family also shut down reports that Hannah had been involved in a green card marriage scheme. Reports that Hannah has made contact with her family also come weeks after her father, Ryan Kobayashi, was found dead by suicide in Los Angeles amid a 16-day search for her.
Case closed. Oh, here's some news. Time Magazine has nominated Donald Trump as the Man of the Year.
Security correspondent Charlie Daggett, who's joining us from the Pentagon with a lot.
Now let's talk a little bit about Syria. We're not going to spend a whole lot. I just wanted to bring a little bit of attention to what's going on over here. It's a big deal, and it's not getting really any mainstream coverage. We might touch back on it again, but this is more so you guys will kind of go take your own initiative and see what that's all about. The civil war that started in 2011, Russia's involvement, Israel's involvement, ISIS. So, I mean, it's a big deal. We won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but here's a couple videos that I grabbed for you.
A lot more. So Charlie, I guess the question that people have is we see the celebrations in the streets. We know that this is, as you know better than anybody, that this has been a long, bloody civil war that's lasted for much longer than anyone. I recall I was still just an associate producer when this war kicked off, just to show folks how long it's been that this war has been ongoing. And we thought back then, I was working at CNN, we thought back then that the war was going to be over relatively quickly. And it dragged out for all these years, so many lives lost, so much treasure spent. The question, of course, is what's next? What does the United States hope to see? What do partners in the region hope to see happens next?
Well, Vlad, I was there when it began, too, and it has taken so long, and there were many chapters. Remember, this is where ISIS was born. As far as U.S. policy is concerned, the Syrian civil war never ended. It might be argued that it hasn't even ended yet, considering the disparate groups that are involved in it. But, for a while, it had reached a sort of simmering status quo. You had government forces concentrated in the south, protecting Damascus. Rebel groups in the northwest, around the Turkish border, like using Idlib as a base or its capital. Then, of course, the Kurdish groups in the northeast, those are allied with.
Okay, let's go to a comment here by Hiawatha. Hannah is probably pissed at her family for putting her business all over the news. I've been wondering about this all day because we cover a lot of cases, right? Chelsea Grimm, Daniel Robinson, Aiden Clune. And then recently there was another case that was solved, right? They found the man and he was just hanging around a bunch of homeless people. Looked like he was possibly suffering from psychosis. I'm not sure. But he definitely didn't want to live a normal lifestyle, and he definitely wasn't interested in reaching out to his family. But there he was on a TikTok or on somebody's podcast, and his brother recognized him. And I think only his brother could have recognized him because he was about probably 60 pounds lighter. He was skin and bones. He didn't look anything like the man presented in the missing flyer. But there he was, a case that we could have picked up easily as a missing persons case. Somebody that we went out, boots on the ground, pulling out the drone, printing out flyers. How many of these cases are just like Hannah's?
The United States and its forces there. But now, the entire deck has been reshuffled. Israel has entered the Golan Heights, that buffer zone along the Syrian border for the first time in 50 years. That reflects the volatility. The United States just launched one of the biggest airstrike campaigns in months against ISIS in Syria using B-52s, F-15 fighter jets. Again, that underlines the volatility there. We've already had reports from my colleagues on the ground of fighting between various factions. For example, there are elements within the Turkish militias who are sworn enemies of elements of inside the Kurdish SDF. So the leader of the main Islamist group is still on the U.S. and UN terrorist list. Then there are scores to settle with members of the former regime, as you saw in that report. There are a lot of people that are going to be scared of reprisals. And this is the same kind of environment that gave rise to ISIS. So, after the honeymoon, after the celebrations, expect some jostling for power and territory.
So, Charlie.
Good to see you, CJK. Let's go to your comment real quick here. The Syrian 3-year-old refugee washed ashore is still so sad. I've not forgotten him. This has probably been the most brutal war in our history. I mean, the brutality that I've seen presented through the news outlets has been very disturbing, very scary. So if you want to learn how to train for modern urban combat, just look what they had to go through. It's very scary. And well, first of all, go look at Syria in 2009, 2008. And then go look at it now and what it looks like compared to that.
Just to the point that you made earlier about being there and as a reporter, you as a journalist, having witnessed all of this bloodshed that we saw over the course of this war. Just remind people, I think this is what's hard for people to understand, and perhaps this is why it's not getting that much attention here in the United States, is how this all began. Remember, his father, Hafez al-Assad, was also a brutal dictator, but when Bashar became
What's going on? D. Ashley, welcome in. Good evening to you.
President, he was actually the second son, as you know. He was an eye doctor, and there was a lot of hope in the Middle East that he would be a reformer, and that turned out not to be the case. How did this all kick off?
There really was. Well, it first started with a demonstration.
Real quick, let's go to Outside of the Grid, another great podcast. I had a friend that disappeared. He disappeared to Denver, was on drugs, shooting heroin. His brother finally found him, but he didn't want to be anywhere but there, where he died recently. Yeah, I mean, that happens, So how many of these cases, these people that we're chasing down, don't want to be found? And sometimes when we get frustrated with law enforcement or investigators, you have to look at things through their eyes too, through that kind of frustration, They deal with it time and time again where you have these concerned families, right? They mobilize. I mean, I've seen it. It's a beautiful thing, the way people mobilize when they're motivated, with commonality. So once that happens, and here you have Hannah Kobayashi in Mexico, she's not missing. She's just doing whatever she wants. She's like, so I lied to my family. Maybe I don't owe them any answers. Maybe I'm sick. Maybe I'm running from the law. Like maybe I'm just doing whatever the fuck I want to do. And then here you have this true crime community, this mainstream media, alternative media, us basically, who are, ready to mobilize and ready to help. And it's like we understand the collective. If we can all join forces, imagine how powerful of a weapon we could be, in the right hands, that is.
that got out of control because it was really on the heels, or really in the midst of the Arab Spring. So they were sort of protesting for a sense of democracy, and it was a long time ago. And you had leaderships and dictators, and that's the way it was run. If you look at Iran, if you look at Syria, you look at Ba'athist regimes. But he was in charge of a minority, the Alawite community. So when the civil war began, it just erupted. And when we first went over, we crossed over from Turkey with some Syrian activists. We went to the same places like Tal Rifat. We were there. As a matter of fact, we bumped into a group of al-Nusra fighters, and we were told with our own FSA guys, look, lay low with those guys. Al-Nusra is the same group, even though they cut their ties, now currently in control, or the lead group of this rebel group.
Hiawatha says, Syria is none of our business. Well, the moment that Russia made Syria their business, that's when we started doing it. Same goes for Afghanistan.
So highly militant, extremely violent in the past anyway. And some of the worst scenes of violence that I've ever witnessed, I witnessed on the battlefields of Syria, because after that happened, then ISIS came along, and there was they just rampaged through all of Syria. That's when the United States was brought in. It was in Iraq. It was in Syria. Remember Mosul? All of that was connected and fighting for years and years and years. What surprised me, what shocked me the most about this is, first of all, the Turks are sort of behind this in a way. They took off the brakes and let these militant groups go. But how quickly it happened. It's happened in less than 2 weeks. I mean, that civil war, as you just mentioned, that's dragged on for 15 years, and it's over in 2 weeks. That's why I'm really cautious, because this hasn't played out yet. We've got the Kurds. They'll want their piece of the pie. We'll have these militant groups. They absolutely want to get what they've been fighting over. The regime, if you...
Let's go to Julia Burns. I will never be able to understand those who express hate towards living in the United States. It's jealousy. That's what it is. It's kind of like being friends with the rich kid, but you don't know he's rich until you go to the sleepover, right? And then you're like, where are we going, man? And then you notice it's this big, big house. You're like, damn, dude, you live here? That's cool. You get in there and his room is bigger than your parents' room. You're like, what the fuck? He's got everything, That's the rest of the world looking at the United States, or well, at least what they think is the United States.
Want to call it that, or the Syrian government, if we want to rename it, they will have some jostling if they want to continue running that country. It's all going to be about a peaceful coalition.
So finally, Charlie, let me ask you a question that a lot of journalists have been asking President Biden, and I'm sure at the Pentagon they're probably talking about this too. We've seen images of prisoners being released from those heinous prisons of Bashar al-Assad. Any word about American journalist Austin Tice?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all hoping for word, right, as journalists. The FBI has renewed the offer of $1 million. That happened yesterday for anything leading for information to the rescue of Austin Tice. He's been missing since 2012. The FBI believes he's in Damascus. And a Syrian activist told Margaret Brennan yesterday on Face the Nation that all the factions are working hard to find them. So, as you said, we've seen the rebels emptying prisons. It's hope they'll find Tice. A few days ago, his family said they found a new source, a reliable source, who told them that their son is alive and healthy and has been treated well. So, there is hope. Secretary of State Blinken said the State Department is doing...
Let's welcome in Moonshadow. And I think Moonshadow is referring to the poll, you guys. If you haven't participated, go do it now. I think we might do a couple of these polls throughout the live stream. So Moonshadow says, rich kid gone rogue, no sympathy, he is a killer. So that would fall under he is part of the evil, I think.
Doing what they can to find him. But we have to remember, we've been in a blackout. The diplomatic sources have been in a blackout in Syria. President Biden said yesterday they have to pinpoint him and bring him home.
Yeah.
His name is Travis, and he was found in Syria, a long way from his home in Missouri. He told me he had just been released from captivity. The Syrians who found him said he was walking barefoot down the road.
I crossed the mountain between Lebanon and Syria, and I was living in that mountain.
He was in the mountains for 3 days and nights without food before he was discovered by a Syrian border guard.
Damascus. My Lord sent me to Damascus.
The Lord sent him, he said, on a pilgrimage to Damascus. Travis seemed remarkably relaxed.
So did you hear what this man said? He said he's on a pilgrimage. He was sent by God on a pilgrimage to Damascus. Listen what he says when they ask him if he wants to contact his family.
Relaxed amidst the scrum of reporters firing questions at him. When asked if he wanted to speak to his family, he said no, and that he was up for taking more questions from reporters.
No, I'm okay for right now.
And he was quite calm, describing the months of captivity he endured at the hands of one of the world's most notoriously cruel regimes. In the chaos of Syria's collapse, families both there and across the world have waited desperately to see who emerges from those dangerous prisons. This morning, we witnessed the U.S. Special Envoy for Hostage Affairs calling Travis during the aftermath of his rescue. And it comes as the United States is scrambling to find more information about Americans in Syria, including imprisoned journalist Austin Tice, whose family has hope he's alive.
I was talking about something else.
And you know, Hoda, Travis was remarkably relaxed about the months he spent in a Syrian prison. He said he was well-fed and well-treated, but his experience was highly unusual. Many people who have been in prisons in Syria have endured torture, abuse, starvation, and executions. Hoda? So many horror stories.
Did he just say, hold up? Julia says, for sure, but I was referring to people who actually live in the USA expressing hate towards their own country. Well, I call that psychological subversion, is what I refer. That's how I refer to it. So that's by design, you know, by outside forces. Let's see. I should talk about. Oh, yeah, this case is very disturbing. Martin Munoz, 41, is accused of killing 4 people near Mac Court and West 37th Street in Cleveland back in January of 2023. This is one cold-blooded son of a bitch. Those are all 4 of his victims. 3 victims: Jaden Bays, 16, Anlek Gonzalez, 35, Miguel Gonzalez, 70, were pronounced deceased on scene. 2 victims, Anthony Booth, 48, an 8-year-old female, were transported to a nearby hospital. 2 survivors. What's going on? Fight for justice. Thanks for the email, by the way.
Okay, all I have to say to you right now on a Friday night is thank God for police body cams, and it's not for all that action video. It's because of this.
Hold up.
If I tried to tell you this next story, and that this story actually happened without the video to back it up, I pretty much don't think that you'd believe me, or as my kids would say, Cap, I got the quick setup for you. Police in Cleveland on a snowy January night a year ago. Roll up to a fella on the sidewalk, roll down their window, and the guy says to them straight up, I just killed 5 people in my family, end quote. This is what it looked like from the officer's point of view. And by the way, we added a few subtitles where it's hard to understand what's being said. Take a look.
I'm serious. I'm not crazy. And you could go to the address and verify. The address is 3719 Mac Court.
Okay, so what you're looking at here on the right is Munoz flagging down 2 officers to tell him about what he had just done.
But I want you to handcuff me first.
All right, let me pull up really quick.
Okay.
What the hell's going on, dude? What the hell, dude? Hold on, I got us. Get out, Compton. Turn your camera on.
could put us up or clear us off of this assignment. No cause. And put us out at 44 and Clark with a male. He approached our vehicle and said that he just did something bad, and he's going to give us an address on Matt Court as to what he did and where it's at. 3719 Matt Court.
Yeah, it sounded like the cop V couldn't believe what the guy was saying. He's like, wait, what the fuck? What? He's like, oh man, like, oh. You know, when you have that feeling like today's just going to be a shitty day, like this is not going to be a good shift today. I just know it. Then you go through the whole day, nothing happens. You're on the final stretch. Then here comes this fucking demon knocking on your window like, hey, I just killed my entire family. You should probably come cuff me. And they're like, oh shit, I knew it.
He said that he killed 5 people.
Exactly, Laura. Exactly.
I got a ponder on that.
You got an ID on you?
Yeah, he had ID on him, but police still didn't know that they were dealing with Martin Muniz, who had already done prison.
So at this point, they think he's just out of his mind. Like, there's no way this guy just killed 5 people. You know, he's sick. He's out here. He's high. You know, they're going to go check the house. There's nobody there. This guy's just, you know, he's on drugs. We'll send him to the hospital. You know, they can't believe what they're hearing.
Time for a list of violent crimes. The cops also didn't know whether he was telling the truth. But a couple of 911 calls later, other units responded to the address that he gave, with their body cams also rolling. So watch what happens when they get to that house.
All right. And then you also have the legal question. Can we even go in? You know, under the Constitution, can we go in? Like, is this enough probable cause? You know, we have this guy saying that there might be dead people inside. Legally, they should be able to just go right in. But you can see him hesitate here about that.
My daughter lives here. I got a call from 2 cousins, my son. Murdered them all. I don't know. I just got here and I don't.
The door's unlocked. I'm still not sure whether or not she went inside the house before law enforcement. What do you guys think? That's the mother of the killer.
My daughter lives here. I got a call
I think she went
from
in
2
there.
cousins, my son. Murdered them all. I don't know. I just got here and I don't trust him, so I was afraid to knock on the door. I was waiting for you guys.
His son's not here, I don't believe. He approached 2.
Do you know the cousin? Does he have mental disorders? What's up?
Who?
The guy that called.
My son, yes. He was locked up for 20 years. Yes, he's got mental
What was he
issues.
locked up for?
Okay.
Repeat offender, locked up for 20 years. I'm curious to what his charges were. Does anybody know? Somebody let him out.
Kinds of violations.
Like violence
yes,
against people?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
he was
well,
locked up for
just
20
hang
years.
tight for us. Barney 25 radio. The front door is open. It's just unlocked. It's not all the way open.
Copy. You want me to walk in first and call my grandkids?
No, ma'am. No.
Who
Hey,
else is
Sarge,
supposed to live here?
My
given
daughter, she
permission
got
to go inside his...
husband.
Have you tried to call her?
I called all of them. No one's answering. But her car's not here.
Supposed to be upstairs though? Hey, we don't need permission.
Well, that's my point. Hiawatha says, I think if she went in before the cop, she would be freaking out after seeing her grandbabies. That's what I mean. I don't think the grandkids were right there. I think the adults were right there. She went in and saw them. That's why she said what she said right here, is because she's already seen that scene. She's only concerned about the grandbabies. Watch, listen to what she says here.
You know the cousin? Does he have mental disorders? What's up?
Who?
Who, the guy that called?
My son, yes, he was locked up for 20 years. Yes, he's got mental
What was he
issues.
locked up for?
All kinds of violations.
Like violence
yes,
against people?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
he
well,
was locked up for
just
20
hang
years.
tight for us. All right.
You want me to walk in first and call my grandkids?
No, man. No.
Did you hear that? You want me to walk in first and call my grandkids?
Sorry.
My
Given
daughter, she got
permission to
2
go
kids, her
inside his.
husband.
Have you tried to call her?
I called all of them. No one's answering. But her car's not here.
Hey, we don't need permission.
Hello?
We had 2 females
We don't need permission.
en route to the location. I wasn't notified of anyone being inside.
Cleveland Police!
Did not know if you
No, I don't know. I don't know. I was afraid to go. I saw the cops. I had the cops come. So I don't know. They're going in town.
Cleveland Police!
Not today, Miss Doc.
Somebody's on the bed.
Got a lot to go through.
Oh,
but I am planning to do a panel. Yeah, Miss Dog Lover, we're going to do a panel at some point. I actually would have done one today. I want to do it on the floor fires. So if you're cool with that, we can talk about anything, but that'll be the title of the video. So we'll probably do that tomorrow at some point.
You got 1 female on the ground.
OF, that cop said. It's real. And it was more than real. And it was more than they saw right at that moment. The scene inside that house was a veritable bloodbath. 5 people had all been shot in the head. Martin Muniz's father, Martin Muniz's sister, her husband, and the couple's 2 kids. There was 1 person that survived that. And it was.
It's like I'm hearing these words coming out of her mouth, but my head can't process the information.
Was an 8-year-old girl. The next thing you're going to see is how Muniz behaved in court in front of a judge. Basically smiling and laughing.
Talk about a psychopath.
This is huge. He was being arraigned on 4 charges of aggravated murder and also attempted murder and assault. And city officials are only now just releasing this body cam video. And here's where it gets even worse. The police have now connected Muniz to another murder, this one in New Jersey, 10 years ago. And now he's charged with that killing too. Tonight he is in jail, and yup, his bond is really high, $5 million. The prosecutors say they may seek the death penalty. I mean, what's it there for other than murdering a whole family and another fella?
The only thing that kind of worries me about this is he might be able to plead insanity. The fact that he kind of flagged the cops down. There was a case that I was covering where a guy, his kids called, or no, a social worker stopped by to check on his kids. They were going through a custody dispute. And he just blacked out. He woke up and the woman was laying on the ground, covered in like, I think 20 or 30 stab wounds. He tried to resuscitate her, didn't work. He called 911, stayed away from his kids, and then went directly, I think, to a hospital or something, or turned himself in, or maybe he just called 911. But either way, he went through his whole trial process, and he was even doing a little bit of malingering and feigning symptoms and all that kind of shit. But still, the judge said, hey, he was insane at the time. So he kind of did something similar here in this case by flagging the cops down. So
allegedly.
Just
and to think all of this whole thing in Cleveland was solved with a sidewalk confession to a passing cop car by the alleged criminal himself. Thank you for watching.
Exactly.
Residences in New Jersey, in the Chicago area, in Illinois. He has also criminal history in the state of New Jersey, history in Florida. In fact, he did 3 years in New Jersey for absconding from parole. In this case, we have 5 victims. 4 of them died as a result of gunshot wounds. The defendant was interviewed. He gave a statement in regards to how he did this, showing no remorse or empathy for the victims in the case. So again, the state will ask for a $5 million, at least a $5 million bond. And
If you're insane,
hearing, it will.
if you're insane, why would you show any remorse? You wouldn't even really understand what you're doing, right?
Be set for January 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Public defender.
Judge, thank you. He is demanding.
Date is 1/23.
Thank you, Judge. Request a reasonable bond. Thank you.
Miranda says, I'm tired of psycho assholes. Let me ask you this, Miranda. Do you think that that family ever once thought that they would be part of some kind of mass crime like this? You think they ever sat down and were like, hey, one day this crazy son of a bitch is going to, he's going to kill us all? I mean, how do you prepare for something like that? That's the scariest thing to me about true crime, is that it's like the snap of a finger. Worlds are flipped upside down.
Mr. Public Defender.
Yes, Judge.
Do you know if he's had any kind of psychiatric evaluation ever?
Judge, I do not know that.
Maybe heard, Your Honor.
You may.
We have a victim.
Wait a minute. Is that Judge Don King? Let me get a look at the back of that hair.
Any kind of psychiatric evaluation ever?
Judge, I do not know that.
Pretty sure that's Don King. That's Judge King.
Maybe heard, Your Honor.
You may.
We have a victim, his 8-year-old niece that survived. She was shot in the neck. She's still in the hospital. This state will ask for no contact order in regards to that.
Was there a relationship between these people?
Yes, Your Honor. One of the victims is his
Yeah, I agree with that,
stepfather. The other one is his sister.
Moon Shadow says, if the government takes over healthcare, it will be a complete mess. Well, if the government takes over anything, it'll be a complete mess. That's why they shouldn't be taking over anything they don't need to. Things that we can handle on our own, we should be handling it. Says we need private to control it. I agree. I mean, name one thing that the government does well, other than the military. I'll wait.
The 16-year-old is his nephew, and the 8-year-old girl that so far survived is his niece. And there is another victim that is not a relative.
How many victims in total?
We have 5, Your Honor. 4 of them died.
Let's go to Hiawatha real quick. He was only out of prison a few months after being in 20 years. Some people just can't cope on the outside. Besides, he'll get 3 hots and a cot in prison. And that's the thing. That's kind of a personality trait or characteristic of people who suffer from psychopathy. It's like this they call it like a parasitic lifestyle. You can't go out there and do your own thing. You got to live off somebody else. So prison for these psychos is where they were headed anyway. You know what I mean?
$5 million bond. Cashier. No contact.
What's up, Cindy?
$5 million cashier, Mike.
That's a good question. Is insanity a spectrum? I would say no. It's either, do you know what reality was? Could you Are you able to determine what's real and what's not? It's like a yes or no. It's like, well, I only see a few hallucinations. You know what I mean?
And with new developments in the shootings of 5 people in a home on Cleveland's west side, a 4th person has now died following what police are calling an act of domestic violence. And tonight, we're also getting the first details on the suspect, a family member. Emma Henderson joins us now live with the latest. Emma.
Lena, we know that the suspect is 41-year-old Martin Muniz. He was arrested after flagging down a CPD patrol car and telling the officer what he did. The arrest happened just before 8 p.m. Friday, the night of the shooting. Muniz is accused of killing his sister, father, and nephew, 34-year-old Angelic Gonzalez, 69-year-old Miguel Gonzalez, and 16-year-old Jaden Baez were found dead in the home. 48-year-old Anthony Booth and his 8-year-old daughter were taken to Metro Health in critical condition. We now know that Anthony died from his injuries. The 8-year-old girl, who we aren't naming because she's a minor, remains in critical condition. There is a growing memorial outside of the home on Mack Court where this all took place, and neighbors are grappling with the facts of what happened on Friday night, with one woman telling me, quote, "I cried about it because I love kids and I just want to know what happened. What led him to do that? That's horrible," end quote. We have heard from many public officials, including council people and the mayor, about the crime, as well as all of them condemning the violence and sending their best wishes to the family of those who were lost. We have those statements available right now at WKYC.com. Lena.
All right, Emma, we'll keep following it.
I just don't see a way to prepare for anything like that. I don't think anybody ever said, "Oh, I think my brother-in-law or my dad or
Attorneys for Joseph Corcoran are turning to federal court.
Or my brother, is going to kill the entire family." But this is some news out of Indiana right here.
Attorneys for Joseph Corcoran are turning to federal court to save him from the death penalty. He's the Indiana man who is now scheduled to die by lethal injection in exactly 1 week from now. His attorneys claim he is seriously mentally.
So they claim he's seriously mentally ill, and notice he's clutching a Bible. Who does that remind you of?
Ill, and that he's unable to understand the severity of his crimes. This case has sparked debate around the return of capital punishment here in Indiana.
Rich Nye has been following Indiana's death penalty issues for years. He joins us in studio tonight at 6 to explain where our state is headed with capital punishment. Rich?
So the last time that Indiana executed someone was 15 years ago, exactly today. But barring a late reprieve from the governor or the courts, Indiana is prepared to use lethal injection once again to carry out the death sentence. Indiana's last execution happened on December 11, 2009. Matthew Wrinkles died by lethal injection.
Let's go to dark side. Yes. Mr. Puddin' Pop himself.
For killing his estranged wife and 2 other people in Evansville in 1994. 8 men currently sit on Indiana's death row, but there have been no executions for 15 years because the Department of Correction could not acquire the drugs needed for lethal injection. That changed.
So can somebody help me understand this? Can you explain this to me? They're saying that we can't kill these folks that are on death row because we can't get our hands on the right drugs. Like, what do you mean? What is it that you need? Do you have a list? Like, what's this cocktail? What's this concoction? And why are they doing that anyway? I don't get it.
Changed in June.
I wanted to know where the Department of Corrections got the drugs from. And then, wanted to know the cocktail that they were actually using, and does it meet 8th Amendment standards for violating cruel and unusual punishment.
Indianapolis attorney Eric Koselke has represented more than 30
Okay, so tell me, please help me explain this too. And who is interpreting these laws here? How is pumping anything through anybody's veins not cruel and unusual punishment? Right? Why don't they just knock the guy out like in surgery and then take his life. Like, why are they injecting him with something? Why don't they put an IV on him like when they take you to surgery, knock you completely out, and then take your life? Why are they injecting your veins and doing this whole like ritual?
Defendants in state and federal death penalty cases.
I'm personally very demoralized. I didn't know whether we would ever have another execution or not, quite frankly. But the fact we are, I spent my whole career going on 40 years this coming June, basically fighting the death penalty, believing it.
Yes, Moonshadow. We're going to talk a lot about fentanyl towards the end of the stream, by the way.
It's wrong.
Joseph Corcoran killed 4 men in Fort Wayne in 1997, including his brother and future brother-in-law. His attorneys argue that he is mentally ill and should not be executed. Meantime, prosecutors are seeking the death penalty in 3 pending cases in central Indiana. Carl Boards II, charged with killing Elwood police officer Noah Chanovez. Orlando Mitchell, charged with killing Marion County Deputy John Durham. And Delani Rogers, charged with the murders of 2 men and shooting 2 more outside a Plainfield motel.
These are people that nobody even knew who they were for the most part until the death penalty is filed, and then they become somewhat of a star.
Let's go to CJK's comment. The laws have to change. Those who are murderers should never get out of prison, in my opinion. Unless true self-defense, then I'd wonder why they were charged. Well, remember, these folks are up in front of a jury of their peers. So when things seem fucked up, you know, it's the jury's fault. You know, that's the decision that they came up with.
And after the execution of Joseph Corcoran, the Indiana Attorney General asked for an execution date for Benjamin Ritchie. He is the man who shot and killed Beech Grove police officer Bill Toney way back in 2000.
All right, Rich, thanks so much.
Oh, no, we should touch on the drones. What do you guys think about them drones? We did touch on this
There's absolutely nothing in the air
a few
right
times
now
already.
on the radar.
Here's a recent sighting.
You can see, oh wait, look, here comes the second one, just like the other night. They're coming right into the same location. Let me see, here comes the other one. There's the one. Here comes number 2.
Drones or UFOs?
You cannot hear a single thing.
Objects in the sky that are the size of an SUV over any city, over any state. It's an invasion of our airspace. In focus now, Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, member of
Welcome
the
in,
House
Cheryl.
Judiciary
You
Committee,
might be right.
on the Hill right now. How do you address this at this point?
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. You know, I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyist or hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality.
Okay, hold on. So this dude is trying to tell us that, I'm assuming, he didn't say top secret clearance, but that's what I'm assuming when he says high up. Like, what's above him, right? He's saying that these drones are basically coming from an Iranian mothership. Like, what the fuck? I mean, they do have motherships, drone motherships. I mean, that's a real thing. But I'm just not sure how it would work or like logistically, right?
These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Look, you've given us some pretty dire information just here, and I want to make sure that our viewers are digesting this. Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home, also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen. That capability exists. It's possible some of those drones are here. So I have two questions. How are they fueling them? They have to land somewhere. Drones don't fly forever. Why don't they close down the airspace? Yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's the holidays. Shut it down. But if you start shooting things and you don't know how they're fueled, that's going to be mass explosions. This isn't like one spy balloon. Congressman, this is serious.
We've got to bring them down, and we've got to find a way to bring them down. I don't know exactly where they're landing. Obviously, I have some information. And again, this isn't just Jeff Van Drew. Oh, let's get on Harris Faulkner's show and say something outrageous. I'm telling you the straight deal from very high positioned individuals who are telling me this. And the bottom line is they're launching them. They are across the country. We don't even have anything like this.
No.
Our government and also certainly our hobbyists don't. So think about it. It's not only do I have the information, but it's also common sense. We've got to get them down. We've got to determine how they function, what they do, make sure that we can get them, and you're right, in a safe way. When I say shoot them down, get them down any way that you can.
Outside of the Grid says this dude's puffing some good shit, bro. He's all shoot them down. I don't know what they are. We haven't identified them yet, but we're going to shoot them down. She's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Easy, bro.
But right now, they're probably extracting information. This is a clear and present danger to the United States and to our president-elect, and it's a serious business.
Well, ongoing. Jen.
Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here.
Let's go to For Real says unidentified drones flying across the U.S. for any amount of time is unacceptable. Not only is it unacceptable, I'm pretty sure it's illegal. I believe it's illegal to fly an unregistered drone. So whoever they belong to, they would know who it is. And if they didn't know who it is, that means that they're breaking the law. So they should have every right, to take them out of the sky.
Is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Phil.
Just a few questions really quick on Syria.
Concern over what are now dozens of unexplained mysterious drone sightings in the state of New Jersey. Yesterday, the Pentagon weighed in saying there's still no evidence the drones are from a foreign threat. But that is not all that reassuring, and there's a lot we do not know. Tom Hansen has more.
Across New Jersey, the sense of unease is growing.
It's wild, honestly. Every single day there's more
Yeah,
conspiracy
what the hell are
theories.
those?
Olivia DiMatteo is a businesswoman in Morris County who says the drone sightings have been happening for weeks. Have you seen them yourself?
Let's go to a super chat by Julia Burns. Okay, Sleuth, that's 12 so far in favor of the tinfoil beanie. Damn, you need to hire me as your marketing manager. Interesting.
They are out every single night in Mendham. You can look out your window and see anywhere between 4 to 8 of them.
Some of the devices she claims are the size of small cars. The state's governor, Phil Murphy, says there's no concern over public safety. One New Jersey congressman, Jeff Van Drew, made waves Wednesday when he stated that sources with high-level security clearance told him the drones were coming from what he called an Iranian mothership offshore.
I hope that my experts and the people that have come to me with this security clearance, I hope they're wrong.
So I'm hearing concerns, but do you have any
Okay, so he just said they have security clearance. What kind of security clearance?
concrete evidence that these drones are in fact coming from Iran?
The evidence that I have comes from individuals who have expressed their concern to me, who are highly placed.
The Pentagon has directly pushed back on those claims.
There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
And while law enforcement works to track down the source of the drones, there have been reports of sightings in the Philadelphia and New York City areas. For CBS Mornings, I'm Tom Hansen in Mendham, New Jersey.
I don't know what the hell this is. Something's going on. I'm assuming it's like the private sector or some kind of organized hoax. All right, let's get into this crazy story, the CEO assassin. And on that note, we're going to close down this poll. We may or may not set up another one, depending on how the conversation goes. Question is, Luigi Mangione is a hero? Question mark. So 51% of you said he is part of the evil. 28% said he is forcing change. Wow. 28% of you are pretty scary. 16% he needed an excuse to kill. 3% said he is my sexy hero. Who the hell selected that one? Show yourself. Oh, I think I know who it was. Somebody from the dark side. Here, I got something for you, dark side.
See your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
Luke. Miranda. Darkseid said it was the devil. The devil. That is being testing for sure if he isn't happening.
Down.
Oh my God! That's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
He seems a little crazy. These aren't the droids you're looking for. All right, let's take a look at this. So what you're looking at here is people attacking the McDonald's employee who tipped this guy in. So let's read this here. I had to take down her profile picture because people were threatening that they would come to her job or house and do horrible stuff. Altoona, PA McDonald's has gotten nothing but screaming customers from all over coming in and yelling at working staff. staff cars, and store property being vandalized. Someone taking a shit outside one of the side doors. Yuck. And call after call after call of nasty people harassing the McDonald's, screaming insults and threats into the phone. What are the odds that that same person is who voted in our poll that he is my sexy hero? I am the grandson of Nancy Parker. I am exhausted of shits on social media threatening her and the rest of my family for rightfully reporting the killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. F you all. How sick can you be to do that? Like, I understand if you you can understand his plight, or you think he did some good, and it took something radical for everybody to pay attention. Like, it's okay to agree with that even if I disagree with you. But to go above and beyond, somebody who turned in a homicide suspect is pretty sick. Okay, so I actually found the witness, and it wasn't a woman, and I was completely shocked. So this was another post that I found. She works for classified ads at McHannon Group. Sure. Would be a shame if she lost her job. Somebody right here says, ladies and gentlemen, the snitch. But guess who really is the quote unquote snitch? I was shocked when I saw this. McDonald's employee. I actually found their photo. I have it somewhere here. There it is. The McDonald's employee. I think they tried to shoot him. What's up, kid? Check the rhyme. Violence, killing people.
Emerging about the suspect accused of murdering the United Healthcare CEO.
Good to see you.
Here's what we know right now. At this hour, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione remains behind bars in Pennsylvania. But investigators announcing today they've made significant progress connecting him to the attack. So let's go through the evidence that police have publicly said they have. We have now learned that Mangione had a notebook on him where he allegedly wrote about targeting a CEO. That notebook is separate from the 3-page manifesto where he claimed he was working alone. Then there's Mangione's fingerprints. Police say that fingerprints taken in Pennsylvania match fingerprints that were found at the crime scene in New York. Then there's the gun that was found on him in Pennsylvania. That, according to police, matches 3 shell casings that were also discovered at the scene. Then there's the fake ID. This was reportedly used at a hostel in New York before the shooting, and it was found on him when he was arrested by police in Pennsylvania. And police say clothing that they obtained from Mangione is also consistent with what the shooter was wearing. Social media posts from a Reddit account appearing to belong to Mangione suggest he was suffering from serious health issues. The 26-year-old writing in part, quote, "It is absolutely brutal to have such a life-halting issue, especially since the issue itself wears down the critical/logical thinking mind you'd usually use to tackle it. The people around you probably won't understand your symptoms. They certainly don't for me." We have so much to get to tonight, including those threats to other executives in the healthcare industry. But we begin.
Oh, real quick, maybe you guys can look this up while we're continue the stream, but I think there was already a copycat. Some woman, some 41-year-old woman apparently started making threats or making plans to do something very similar. Maybe you guys can post that in the chat.
In Pennsylvania, with NBC's Stephanie Gosk.
Tonight, Luigi Mangione remains locked up in a Pennsylvania state prison,
Completely out of touch.
fighting extradition to New York City on murder charges. The NYPD says its crime lab has made significant forensic breakthroughs in its investigation, potentially linking Mangione to the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The weapon the 26-year-old had on him when he was arrested in a Pennsylvania McDonald's matches evidence from the Manhattan crime scene.
We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown.
Fingerprints match too, the NYPD commissioner says.
We're also able at our crime lab
Thank
to
you, Elizabeth.
match the person of interest's fingerprints with fingerprints that we found on both the water bottle and the.
I don't know what it is, but I swear that this woman is a cartoon character from Bob's Burgers.
That we found on both the water bottle and the Kind bar.
A senior law enforcement official says the shooter left those items behind near the scene, along with shell casings that had the words deny, delay, depose, an apparent reference to the language health insurance companies use when rejecting claims.
This is powerful circumstantial evidence, and it's going to start coming in like an avalanche now that they've found Mangione.
In addition to the gun and fake IDs, Mangione was also carrying a notebook, according to 2 sources familiar with the investigation, with this written inside. What do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and it doesn't risk innocence. Echoing the language, frankly, these parasites had it coming, which was discovered in handwritten pages also found on Mangione, according to 3 senior law enforcement officials. The spotlight on health insurance companies has triggered a backlash online, with many voicing their anger at the industry. In New York City, fake wanted posters have appeared.
Yeah, there was something up with that lady. I swear she was like a character from a cartoon.
Targeting CEOs of insurance companies. An NYPD intelligence and counterterrorism official today said Thompson's murder resembles a domestic terror attack and threatens to set off a, quote, contagion.
This guy's not a hero. He's not a hero. If you have any issues with somebody, we don't go out there and commit violence.
And Stephanie Gosk joins us now from Huntington, Pennsylvania, outside of the prison where Mangione is being held right now. Stephanie, talk to us a little more about that Reddit account that's associated with Mangione and his apparent health issues.
Yeah, you know, Ellison, it has since been taken down and archived, but we have verified it, and it goes back years, and it chronicles a number of health issues that Mangione had through the years. In 2018, he describes brain fog that he thought was stemming.
Well, now you made me feel bad, because if you read the first part, maybe she has whiplash, bro. You're being mean. But then you continue on from being hit by an animated anvil from Acme, and then you laugh.
From Lyme's disease. He then goes on to talk about chronic back pain that he had. It also talks about the surgery that he had from that back pain, and said once he had the.
Is it me, or does he seem very capable for being under so much pain? You know what I mean? This dude's like running around, assassinating people, taking off on bikes, taking the bus. You know, he doesn't seem like he has any real ailments.
Surgery, he was able to get off of the medications he had been taking for it. You know, I think what a lot of people were looking for was to see if there was any connection to health insurance companies there, or perhaps criticism of the kind of coverage he might have gotten. It doesn't seem to be there, but very clearly he has had a bunch of health issues, Ellison.
Stephanie Gosk in Pennsylvania again. Thank you. We appreciate it. For more on the case prosecutors are building against Luigi Mangione and how his team might try to defend him, I want to bring back NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, who you heard from in Stephanie's report just then. Danny, thanks so much for being with us again. I kind of want to set this up as if you were the defense attorney representing Luigi Mangione. You're not associated with the case. You know what we know, but you are a defense attorney yourself. And I'm curious, when you look at what
Fight for justice. If she drives a Cybertruck, I'm convinced that it's a droid.
We know Mangioni's legal team seems to be facing a mounting pile of evidence, from the weapon they say was found on Mangione that ties back to the crime scene here in New York, to the fingerprints they say that now match items, a water bottle and a food wrapper that was found near the scene in New York, as well as the fake ID that he actually gave to police in Pennsylvania. And it was, according to police, the same ID used here in New York. If you were a part of his defense team representing him for the charges he's going to face in New York and that he's accused of here, how would you begin to deal with that massive pile of evidence?
Yeah, one thing we knew is that the evidence was going to multiply as soon as they found a suspect, because up until they found Mangione, they had only one side of several pieces of evidence. Fingerprints. If you're looking for a suspect who has never been arrested before, then he's not going to be in APHIS, the national database. Some of these other things, the shell casings, you don't have a firearm to match it up with. Oh, this is now very helpful. We have a suspect who had a firearm on him. So we always knew that the evidence would multiply as soon as they found a suspect. As the evidence builds, the defense will likely move away from a some other guy did it defense and possibly into a diminished capacity, insanity, some kind of defense like that, maybe a kind of temporary insanity, to the extent it's even available to them in New York. So as the evidence builds against them strategically, the defense team is going to have to really think about what avenues they're going to take. And by the way, the defense team isn't really assembled yet. That Pennsylvania lawyer will not be his lawyer in New York. I can virtually guarantee it. You pick a lawyer in the region who knows the procedure and knows the courthouse for a case as big as this. He knows Altoona. They'll find someone for New York.
Leave it to a lawyer to leave it out.
And in terms of that notebook that we are learning more about today, this was allegedly found on Mangione, and it outlined a shooting very similar to the one that he's accused of carrying out here in New York. And two sources familiar with the investigation are telling NBC News that the notebook included this, quote, "What do you do?" It says, "You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence."
I don't know.
Is that something that the defense could argue, hey, that's circumstantial, we don't know if he wrote it? I mean, how do you approach dealing with that if you're trying to defend someone here?
Oh, I can guarantee that.
Let's go to Miranda Lee's comment here. I think she's talking a little bit about hybristophilia. It's crazy how some Americans make these killers into heroes or feel sorry for them or think their rights matter more than the victim or the family of the victim. How about people who are gushing online over this guy, or people like Brian Koberger, who are incels and couldn't get a date? The harder they tried, the harder these girls ran. And now you have women gushing for them. Why?
The prosecution is going to take that notebook and they're going to introduce all kinds of pieces of evidence that will allow a jury to infer that he wrote it, even if he would take the stand, which you probably wouldn't, and say, "I never wrote that notebook. I don't know what you're talking about." They would introduce officers who would say they got it from his person. It was in his possession. They might introduce handwriting experts. I mean, you don't need the defendant to authenticate all the evidence against him. In fact, most of the time, the defendant is opposing all of this evidence. So the notebook will come in. They will use it. It's excellent evidence, not only of motive, but it's circumstantial evidence that he is.
What? At what point did you shoot the clerk?
I shot the clerk.
Yes, when did you shoot him?
I shot the clerk.
Hey, Dean, you need...
Criminals are looking to avoid creating evidence of a crime. This is someone who, it appears, is creating evidence in a way that he probably perceives as some form of civil disobedience when it's murder. And he's just creating this evidence to make a statement. In fact, his behavior has been inconsistent. He's fleeing on one hand, but also creating all this evidence to say, if you're reading this, essentially, I've been caught and this is why I did it. So all of that stuff is going to be helpful to prosecutors as circumstantial evidence. And then they have direct evidence really in the form of videos.
This is a really good question. Cindy says, if he was a gross looking man, would people's opinions change? Thoughts? It's a good question. Because right from the beginning, we all said, well, this is a handsome man. We saw the manicured, what we thought were manicured eyebrows, a younger person, a good smile. So then everybody began gushing. So that's a good, what if it was some fat slob But I guess some would still gush, right? Some of the extreme hybristers.
And maybe even witnesses who saw him throughout this entire saga.
You mentioned some of the inconsistent behavior. There was also that outburst outside of the courthouse yesterday. And according to our team who was inside of the courtroom, he had a very different demeanor once inside. When you look at that outburst and the behavior inside, is that something that his defense team could point to say, see, something is going on here, and maybe go to, as you suggested earlier, some sort of insanity defense?
Sure, but I mean,
let's go to Miracle Heart. Says, yes, Cindy, because Rick Allen was no prize, but I didn't really see anybody gushing over him, like in a sexual way. It was more like, well, we're coming to his aid because he's a pathetic family man that's being framed. It wasn't like, oh, he's so hot, I want him to have my babies, or, anything like that. It's different with him than it is with this guy, Mangione, and people like Brian Koberger. I just can't, but maybe it's because they're young.
Insanity as a defense has fallen out of favor since the 70s. And in fact, it's a very risky proposition, because in order to plead the insanity defense, you have to admit to the conduct and say, yes, I did it, but here's some more information. I have a medical issue. And then you need medical experts. And believe me, the prosecution has plenty of their own medical experts. So it's a gambit. It's rarely used now. And in fact, it is a huge risk, because you're essentially admitting to everything and hoping that the jury finds that there was something wrong with you in terms of mental illness, so that this can be excused. And I got to tell you, ever since a number of high-profile shootings in the 70s, the insanity defense is not very popular.
You mentioned something about the question of whether or not he would take the stand and how that would be unlikely. I imagine a defense team would say, hey, we don't think you should do this. But if you look at someone who on paper is seemingly writing and wanting to talk about what he did and why, can he say, I'm taking the stand anyway?
A defendant has an absolute constitutional right to take the stand, no matter how many times his defense attorney tells him not to do it. But I'm gonna make a prediction here. As much as he seems to want to speak out, a lot of times the same defendant who says, I'm going to get up there and tell my story and exonerate myself, when you get in the courtroom, you're in the hushed atmosphere, it's intimidating, you have a judge in the robes up there. A lot of times these same defendants decide, you know what, maybe I will remain silent. And trial is probably years away, literally years away from this date as we sit here. And that's a lot of time to sit and think about your case. And whatever outbursts you're seeing now, he might be a little more demure.
Welcome in, Badass. Says Scott Peterson had his groupies. I guess he was kind of a young guy.
When trial comes, and may decide not to testify. As much as he may seem like someone who wants to get up and tell his story, I'm not entirely sure that's indicative of whether he will actually take the stand.
All right. Danny Ceballos, thank you so much for your time and insights, as always. We appreciate it. Also developing in this investigation, potential threats to other CEOs in the healthcare industry. Wanted posters displayed in New York City today appear to show photos.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who thought Ted Bundy was good looking. Remember, he got married too while he was in court, and he even fathered a child from behind bars. Yeah, he had a huge following. Charles Manson did. Who else? Richard Ramirez. But what about like people like these ogre types, like Rex Heuermann and Rifkin and those types? I don't really see anybody gushing over them.
Of Brian Thompson and other major healthcare executives, accompanied with threatening language. For more on this, I want to bring in retired NYPD Lieutenant Darren Porcher. Lieutenant Porcher, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Walk me through what's going on here. What has the NYPD said about these posters? And from your perspective, what could it mean for the investigation into Mangione?
The NYPD is introducing the aspect of this is quite damning behavior as it relates to posting pictures of CEOs and stating that they're wanted, because it now drives towards a narrative on the lines of it's okay.
Elizabeth says if it makes it to trial, I think he's going to have an outburst in court. They were talking about that, and they're saying, well, trial is a year, maybe 2 years down the road. His demeanor is going to change by then.
To use violence against other individuals in society. However, on social media, the killer in this case, has developed somewhat of a robust following, because what American has not had health care denied from the healthcare insurance companies? So you have a large contingent of people that are in favor or actually applauding the killer in this particular case, but the NYPD is trying to get in front of it as best as they can. But as a result, you're going to see a lot of these CEOs and executives in these healthcare insurance companies that will be affording themselves security in the interim.
I mean, you mentioned
Little bit, Brad.
positive response to the alleged killer on social media. When you look at that as someone with such a wealth of law enforcement knowledge and background, does it worry you that we could see some sort of copycat behavior moving forward?
It does worry me that we're going to have more and more people that are going to get behind this actual killer and embark upon a copycat act. And I give you an example. I look at the McDonald's where the killer was captured, or the suspect was captured.
V says, ugh, Ramirez, old stank breath demon. Yeah, have you guys seen his mugshot? Here, I might have it. Let me see if I can just look it up real quick. Better yet, his teeth. Oh, here's a good one. Oh, stank breath demon. Got that right.
Have been taking a mountain of negative heat based on the tip that was provided by the McDonald's worker. And so I worry about that facility as well. When I say the facility, meaning the McDonald's restaurant, because there's mountains of these negative comments that are directed towards that employee. This was a good person. This was a person that did the right thing and provided a tip to law enforcement, because there was a suspected killer in society. But as I go back to this other side where you have these people that are in support of the suspect, it really begs the question of what is right in society. And what is right in society is we need to have violent criminals behind bars and not on the streets.
How do law enforcement agencies deal with threats like this? Because obviously making a threat, saying something, typically doesn't violate the law. So how would the NYPD or other law enforcement agencies approach something like this?
Well, it's quite the contrary. Threats do violate the law. And so if you do make a threat such as, look, I'm going to kill you, or something to that effect, then law enforcement can take the necessary steps to bring that person into custody. But at the same token, law enforcement is being flooded with so many of these allegations. I want to say allegations, but these people driving against these healthcare establishments. They're going to make recommendations in how to fortify executives in the healthcare industry. Case in point, United Healthcare has just recently erected a fence around its facility in Minnesota. So that's a harbinger for the directional path that these healthcare insurance companies are taking.
Sure, Cindy.
All right. Thank you so much.
I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find it. All right, let's look at some of these sickos who are gushing over the CEO assassin.
So many women and so many men are going nuts over how good looking this killer is. And there's a huge wave of horny washing over us right now.
This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
What's this one say? Hold on, let me pull this up. Got this one covered up. So I took this off of X. Somebody named Ezzy says he's hot, bisexual, Italian, and a blink. Do you guys know what that is? The fuck is that? Luigi Mangione got the full package. Free him. All right, these are reasons why people are calling him a hero. His actions lead to cross-partisan unity in the U.S. Like what? United Healthcare and all other health insurance companies are pure evil. That jawline, that smile, those eyebrows, that body, and then they have two pictures of the dude. Here's your hero.
All right, I guess.
All right, here we're gonna. This is kind of going to a point I was trying to make about people. I call it the Dexter effect. Are you guys? Did you guys ever get into the show, the Showtime show Dexter, where he was a serial killer and the way he kind of channeled his rage was finding bad people, just like himself, but worse, right? Evil people. So he would kind of make an excuse to kill. I feel like that's what Mangione is doing. You know, he's trying to find a noble cause, but really he's just like every other psychopath. They're fantasizing about murder and then they're trying to put themselves in that position. You know, how do I get there? How do I get from point A to point B? His journey was, oh, I'm going to make up this lie that I tell myself, which is what a lot of serial killers do. Well, at least a lot of the ones that come forward, you know, they convince themselves of certain things that prostitutes are vermin or something like that. At least that's an actual quote from Rifkin. Disease carrying vermin, I think, is the exact quote. He doesn't think that now, but he would tell reporters that he would convince himself of that. I think that's very similar with Gary Ridgway, people that targeted sex workers. But with this video here, this is a guy he's already a convicted murderer. He's in a maximum security prison, and his bunkie or his cellmate tells him, well, I raped or molested an 11-year-old child. And he kills him. So a lot of people are going to clap their hands and say, oh, you killed the child molester. But do you really think that this guy gives a shit about that kid? That's the question.
He decided to clear his conscience or something, but, you know, he told me what he was in prison for, that he had, you know, was accused of raping an 11-year-old girl, and he got 25 to life for it. And, you know, I told him that's enough. I don't want to hear anymore. I first, you know,
right? Who's going to shed a tear for some chomo? Who's going to shed a tear for some evil CEO of this health company, right? Of this health insurance company. It's kind of the same thing. If they target those individuals, they won't get any flack from the rest of us.
punched him a couple times. Still wouldn't shut up. Still kept telling me he wanted to explain that he didn't do it, that he was being set up and all this stuff. And I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and strangled him. Then,
So do you think this guy is actually concerned about this child? Like he's actually offended by being in the presence of this this child predator? Or do you think, oh, that's the red light, or that's the green light right there? That's the go ahead. I can commit a murder, and he's pretty much the only person I can target. Oops. We'll start that one over. Oh, I went way too far. Somewhere around here. Yeah, there we go. We'll start this one over.
All right, I guess he decided to clear his conscience or something, but, you know, he told me what he was in prison for, that he had, you know, was accused of raping an 11-year-old girl, and he got 25 to life for it, and, you know, I told him that's enough, I don't want to hear any more. I first, you know, punched him a couple times. Still wouldn't shut up. Still kept telling me he wanted to explain that he didn't do it, that he was being set up and all this stuff, and I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him, and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and strangled him. Then after I was done, I mean, I was aware of what I was doing, you know, and then I just put him on his bed and covered him up and climbed in my bed and went to sleep.
All right. Because of time, let's go ahead and get into, I guess, it's kind of breaking news. LeBron James stepping away from the Lakers. And this is about, what, a day and a half, 2 days? No, maybe a day, 2 days, maybe 2 to 3 days after the accusations against Jay-Z, which everybody said, hey, we're expecting something to come out from this P. Diddy fiasco about Jay-Z. Sure enough, he's being sued. So, I mean, it may not go through. They may find a way to settle out of court. I'm not sure. But now you have another Diddy party goer, Mr. 666 himself, LeBron James, out of nowhere after what happens to Jay-Z, just walks away from the Lakers. What do you guys make of that? Is he the next to be named? Him and Ellen DeGenerate?
I'm gonna start this off, you know, since I'm the man of the hour, the man of the show. I want to ask LeBron, what does he mean by there's no party like a Diddy party? I truly want to know. And not only that, LeBron, how many Diddy parties have you actually been to? I'm really curious to know. And is that the reason you left social media? Because all the backlash you were getting for going to so many Diddy parties? It's just pathetic, man. People think this guy's a role model. He wants to defund the police, the most patriot people of America, serving and protecting our country. LeBron, you're a fucking scumbag, and I hope you get locked up in the same cell with Diddy.
Hey, everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. Bron! We know you was at them Diddy parties, nigga! We know you was there!
We know he was there. Yeah, that's what it looks like, for real. Like a house of cards, dominoes.
Stop it.
LeBron James' satanic ritual.
Stop it. You said the man was not even on your level. That's an insult.
He most admired and referred to China.
Silly, man. Do that.
Their basic dictation.
He most admired.
There you go. You think Kendrick Lamar is...
All right. Because of time, let's skip forward a little bit. Let's get into Trudeau and what's going on with Canada and all this posturing between Canada and Donald Trump.
Going battle rapping with people on the street? I can't do that.
So maybe I'll explain why I put a little Hitler mustache on
Toronto
Trudeau.
women was an example. Even with Sun TV watching for any slip, he was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast as we need to start investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about of having a dictatorship that he could do everything he wanted that I find quite interesting.
Trudeau's rival.
Here was an X post by Elon Musk. It was a picture of Hitler, and it says, "Stop comparing me to Justin Trudeau. I had a budget." He quickly deleted it.
Justin Trudeau might want to recall he's a member of a much wounded third party. His recent addled musings betray a much more entitled vision, with the Tories as evil usurpers and Harper as a bogeyman worse even than the horror of separatism itself. So when Justin speaks of looking at Canada in its current state and not seeing his liberal values looking back at him, so why his should have such supremacy is oddly troubling.
That's him.
He shouldn't blame Stephen Harper so much as the battered, rejected hulk the Liberal Party has become. The great red machine has become the Costa Concordia of Canadian politics. Further, when he goes on incontinently about the nightmare, I quote, of Stephen Harper's Canada, banning abortion and same-sex marriage and 10,000 other things, unquote, it's worth asking, what movie is playing when only Justin is in the theater? Finally, when he puts that in the context of, quote, he always says, at a certain point I believe that Canada was really the Canada of Stephen Harper, maybe I would think about making Quebec a country, end quote. When we hear Justin...
Lisbeth, no, just ignore that. That was an inside joke.
Trudeau telling us when separatism is an option, I think we've left movie land altogether, and Canadians
the
are the
biggest state in the
spectators of
United
an eerily
States of
private
America,
drama
Canada,
in which Justin Trudeau is the author, the actor, and the audience. There's a deep sense of special privilege and self-righteous fantasy playing through these remarks. Essentially, he's saying, if Canada doesn't conform to me and my values, why then Canada must be wrong or have been taken over by evil Harper forces. It really is difficult to believe the son of Pierre Trudeau, who saw separatism as an absolute anathema, who fought it with every nerve and despised it, that the son could find himself, even in a rhetorical feint, offering separatism as solace or escape. In feeble extenuation, he suggested he has to say things in a bizarre, strange, or provocative manner to get people to pay attention. Please. Justin Trudeau twirling his pirate's mustache gets more attention than Johnny Depp twirling his. Brad Pitt eloping with Kate Middleton might knock him off the front page, but only if Paris Hilton was giving the bride away. This country's celebrity politician has the people's attention whenever he wants it. Two things. Canada is not Stephen Harper's Tamal. Canada is bigger, stronger, and deeper than Stephen Harper. And here's a shock. It's bigger and stronger than Justin Trudeau as well. Bigger than all the politicians. Secondly, and perhaps more to the point for the camera-caressing Justin, Canada is not your mirror. It's not meant to match the face looking into it. If, as you say you do, you look at Canada and you do not see yourself in the values reflected there, then maybe the fault is not the mirror, but in the hand that's holding it. It is pure hubris to believe your values are the litmus of everyone else's nationhood. Finally, no one's accusing Justin Trudeau in his first or third person of being a separatist.
Welcome in, Christine.
Well, carelessly, Justin Trudeau himself. For The National, I'm Rex Murphy.
In the United States, President-elect Donald Trump has suggested that Mexico and Canada should become U.S. states if they want to continue receiving subsidies. During his interview with NBC News on Sunday, the president-elect ranted about U.S. trade deficits as a result of the free trade agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state. All I want to do is to have a level, fast, but fair playing field.
Now, Donald Trump seemed to be exaggerating the numbers as the U.S. trade deficit in goods was around 64.
And don't forget, Donald Trump is one of the biggest trolls in all history. He likes to troll people.
Billion with Canada and $152 billion with Mexico in 2023. And for the first 10 months of this year, the deficit figures was about $50 billion with Canada and around $141 billion with Mexico. Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum took aim at Donald Trump on Monday, reminding him that he was the one who in fact orchestrated and signed the free trade deal during his first term.
Obviously, Mexico is a free, sovereign, and independent country. I understand that this subsidy he speaks about has to do with the increase in Mexico's exports to the United States, which now exceed Mexico's imports from the U.S. More than looking at each other as competition, we have to look at each other as complementary. It was President Trump who signed the USMCA, and the United States has had a lot of benefits from the agreement.
Donald Trump's comments come days after he threatened to impose a 25% tariff on all Mexican and Canadian exports on day one of his presidency. However, he said the motivation for the tariff was not trade.
See, Donald Trump don't discriminate. He's like, I'm going to put a tariff on you and you.
Imbalance, but the problem of drugs and migrants coming illegally into the United States via these countries. Following the threat, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rushed to have dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. However, the president-elect made a mockery of their meeting and called Trudeau the governor of the great state of Canada. Meanwhile, President Sheinbaum said she was doing everything to stop migrant caravans from reaching the U.S.-Mexico border.
Donald Trump raised the issue of migration on their southern border, our northern border, and the issue of fentanyl because those are two issues that he is concerned about. And that was the argument, let's say, for introducing the tariffs. I raised all these issues with President Trump, and I told him that the caravan he mentioned in his publication, well, that caravan in reality is not going to reach the northern border because we have a strategy in place, and it's being taken care of in our country.
Oh, now it is. Yeah,
now, it's no secret that the incoming commander-in-chief's tariffs would significantly impact the trade relationship between the three countries, raising the prices of goods for all Americans. But it remains to be seen if Donald Trump would sabotage his own free trade pact with Mexico and Canada and let Americans suffer.
This is what Lala was talking about. It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so that we may continue our in-depth talks on tariffs and trade, the result of which will be truly spectacular for all. DJT. Trolling.
The Prime Minister went into the call with Canada's premiers with a plan, and the premiers came out swinging.
We need to be ready. We need to be ready to fight. This fight is coming, 100%.
Sources say the Prime Minister laid out broad strokes of a new beefed-up border strategy.
We asked for more boots on the ground for our CBSA officers and our CMP officers, and they agreed.
And obviously a priority will be to share details of this plan with the incoming Trump administration and with Canadians in the coming days.
It's an all-hands-on-deck response to Donald Trump's threat to slap Canadian goods with a 25% tariff over concerns about the border.
The tariffs that they've proposed at 25% would be devastating to the Canadian economy.
Ottawa's already pledged more helicopters and drones. Provinces offered law enforcement resources, both aimed at stopping.
So Donald Trump's telling them that his main concern is fentanyl. So that's where we're going to kind of transition into that discussion. If we have time. We're definitely out of time, but I'm going to try to push it here.
Illegal crossings. And sources say Trudeau also discussed the fight against fentanyl, something Trump brought up repeatedly when the Prime Minister visited Mar-a-Lago. Justin Trudeau has also floated retaliatory tariffs.
We will, of course, as we did 8 years ago, respond to unfair tariffs.
Ford took that further, threatening to stop Ontario energy exports.
We will go to the full extent, depending on how far this goes. We will go to the extent of cutting off their energy.
Premiers have also been key to the diplomatic push to convince Trump to change his mind, meeting with American governors and appearing on American TV, saying tariffs will be bad for both countries.
It's hurting the American people. It's hurting the Canadian people. Why the president is doing this is beyond me.
Quebec Premier François Legault met Trump last weekend in France. He's now calling for a costed border plan, tighter visa rules, and to negotiate a new free trade agreement now and without Mexico. How much this will cost for now is unclear. Sources have said Ottawa is prepared to spend up to $1 billion on border security, spending that could be approved before Donald Trump even takes office. Kate McKenna, CBC News.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump in growth. Others point to the unpredictability of Trump's approach. So the question still remains, is this the dawn of a trade war 2.0? And if it is, how much pain are both countries and the world prepared to endure?
What in the heaven? What in the world, man?
The fentanyl lean. Imagine being high on something that did that to you.
Canada as we speak. You have the autocratic leader in Canada who's resorted to genuinely authoritarian and tyrannical means to suppress a peaceful mass protest against the power elite there. Everything that we see happening up north, everything from the execution of emergency powers to the freezing of bank accounts,
all coming
the
from
seizure
China.
of children from parents, the destruction of livelihoods and small businesses, all of these things could happen here. So the question I ask myself in confronting all this is, what are they so afraid of? Who are they afraid of? You know the answer. It's simple. They're afraid of us. They're afraid
We'll be all
of
right,
a free
Lala.
people. They're afraid
Don't worry
of
about
a
us.
free society. I've got to believe that Thomas Jefferson was thinking about these cowardly, fearful leaders.
Because you know, Lala, that they're going to do exactly what Trump tells them to do.
When he said they prefer the calm of despotism to the boisterous sea of liberty.
And honestly, all he's asking for is to secure the borders. We don't want illegal immigration coming from Canada, and we don't want fentanyl coming that's killing all these Americans. And it's funny that it's China that's pumping that shit into our country, and it's Trudeau that's saying that he wishes he was more like China.
They're afraid of the freedom that empowers each and every one of us to seek the truth, to speak freely, to question their decisions and their authority. They're afraid of losing power, knowing full well the intent of our founders when they wrote in the Declaration of Independence that governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government.
Canadians know this is a question of right or wrong. Canadians know that, yes, it is incredibly hard for Ukraine to continue to stand against Russian aggression. And let's be honest, it's hard for the democracies around the world who are there to support their citizens, who are investing for the future, who are challenged with a challenging economy around the world to continue to step up as Canada has with close to $9 billion in aid for Ukraine. But we will, because the cost on Canadians, on our lives, on our world will be so much greater if Putin wins this war that we will and have to stand every single day until Ukraine wins this war.
Hail Trudeau. I was going to get into some of this college football stuff, but I'm actually running out of time. You guys see this? They're trying to make it illegal in Ohio to plant the flag at a football game. Miranda. He's like the Lucky Islands up there. Get back here! I got fucking spray now. Get back! Some people got made.
Herm Edwards, ESPN football analyst, former college and NFL head coach, and he works on the Mothership on SportsCenter, variety of other programs. He's been a busy guy this morning. All right, Herm, you got more of a problem with those planting the flag or those reacting to those planting the flag?
I think the planting the flag days are over for college football. I do. I think when you see something like that occur, obviously, with the emotions of young people, I just think it was a bad look for college, a bad look for everyone involved in it. I think this will.
All right, guys, I apologize, but that's all the time we have for today's Anything and Everything. Big shout out to all of you who caught the live stream. And if you're part of that replay crew, you know what to do. Leave us a comment. We'll get back to you. Big shout out to today's sponsor, Julia. Thanks for the super chat. And all of you who continue to donate to the Cash App, the Venmo, and the Zelle. You guys are who make this possible. You, the members, and all of the mods that keep the chat chill. So until next time, guys.
Anything and everything. Anything and everything.
He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. 3, 2, 1. Anything.
Everything.
Anything. Downhill. My name is Ted Bundy.
submitted for your approval. What have we got here?
Oregon 911.
I would like to order a pizza.
You called 911 to order pizza?
Okay, I will destroy humans.
Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
Everything.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So about 5 minutes after the police got here, see, the girl Amanda told the police, I ain't just the only one. It's some more girls up in that house.
He had a gun and he was poking it in my side, told me to drive. And so I drove.
Shook hands. Trump on South Korean soil, Kim Jong-un in the north.
It's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world known as the Pentaverate.
I think these boys were involved in it. They practiced it. They were considered dabblers in it.
Telling their kids that you can't go outside or a vampire will get you, just to make their kids stay and do what they want to do. God is basically the same way.
The Second Amendment, like all other rights, is not absolute.
Let's watch a sitcom or something.
No!
Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
It was very difficult for her to lose sight of the fact that she wasn't there bonding with Dylan the way I was. And I think that was a huge problem for her.
If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a...